I'm pretty excited about this feature. This is, for context, Acceleration Snapshots is a new feature that we enabled in preview in 1.8. And one of the nice things about it is before now, you've kind of had this trade-off in Spice where you could have really fast accelerated queries, but then you had to pay the cost every time Spice started up of loading the entire acceleration from the federated source. And depending on the federated source, that could take a while. And so what we have the now shipped in 1.8 is the ability to basically take a snapshot of the acceleration, upload it to an object storage location like S3. And the next time Spice starts, we'll just pull the latest snapshot from S3, which can be a lot faster than trying to load it from the federated source and has a few other benefits that I'll get into. Here's the docs if you want to try it out in your own Spicepod. So we have a new section in the Spicepod called Snapshots. You can set whether it's enabled true or false, globally for your entire Spicepod. And then we have the location. So this is the S3 location where you want these snapshots to be uploaded. We have some configuration that allows you to specify what you want to happen if we're not able to load the snapshot for some reason. And then on each data set that you want, each data set in the Spicepod, you can actually individually configure whether the snapshot should be enabled. So this allows you to basically, configure that, the maybe some slow loading data sets, you want to have acceleration snapshots. This is also really useful for being able to share accelerations across multiple Spice instances. So let's say you've got 10 Spice instances all loading from the same federated source. Instead of having all 10 instances having to hit that federated source in order to load data, now you can just configure them to load the latest snapshot, and then they can start up really quickly, and they're also not putting load on the federated source. Cool. Also in 1.81, we've also added some metrics around snapshots. So under our observability docs, we have here the different snapshot metrics that we've enabled, including how many bytes we downloaded, how long it took, et cetera, any failures. And so this can help if you're adding some dashboards around Spice to make sure that the feature is working as you expect. So I'll go ahead and switch over to my demo. So I've got here the snapshots configuration where I'm putting them into this S3 bucket. And then I have the configuration to warn. So if we're not able to load the snapshot, we'll just warn and continue on and load from the federated source. I've got some of my S3 parameters. This is the same parameters that we support for our S3 dataset, so no surprise there. And then on the dataset configuration, I've just got snapshots enabled. We also support different configuration here. So bootstrap only. If you specify this, it will only download the snapshot whenever it starts up. It won't actually try to create new snapshots. Then we have a second mode where if you only want Spice to create new snapshots, you can specify create only. And so this can be useful, like if you have one, like again, if you have multiple Spice instances, you can dedicate one of them to managing and creating new snapshots, while the other ones will only ever pull new snapshots. So I'll go ahead and run the Spice. And one thing you'll see here is when Spice starts, it'll look to find whatever the current snapshot is for the data set. We'll see here that our taxi trips data set was able to find the acceleration snapshot. It was able to download it, and then we started up, and we never hit the federated source. And so if I go over here and do a SpiceSQL, I can see I've got my taxi trips data set loaded, and then I can do a query on the taxi trips data set, and we get all the data here. If I go over into S3, we can actually see the snapshot. This is my bucket location where I've got the snapshots. You'll see that we store it in kind of like a Hive partition style. And so it's actually easy to see like, okay, well, I want the snapshots from today. And we can see how many snapshots were uploaded. There's also a metadata JSON, which kind of points to the current snapshot. Over here on our metrics endpoint, we can actually go and look for the metrics, and we can see all the metrics that I was talking about before, including like the checksum that we use, how long it took to download, et cetera, et cetera. So the other thing that snapshots are useful for is if your federated source is unavailable. So let's say that, let's pretend that this is not an S3 data set that I'm connecting to, but it's maybe a MySQL or a Postgres, and you want Spice to still load even if that source is down for some reason. So let's say your Postgres database goes down, you still want Spice to be able to load and serve queries. So let's pretend that's happening here, but I'll just put an invalid source. So this Spice wouldn't normally be able to load from this source because the source doesn't exist. But we'll see that even without an acceleration file, when I run Spice, it will still be able to download the latest snapshot and then initialize the data set. And then we get this warning that says that, hey, we failed to connect to the source for taxi trips. But even though we failed to connect to the source for taxi trips, we're still able to load the data set from the acceleration. And if I come over here to my Spice.SQL, I'm still able to, select star from taxi trips and get the data. And so this is just kind of another way that Spice can help operationalize, making sure that even if your federated source goes down for some reason, Spice can still help your application stay up and available. So yeah, so that's a quick, I'll actually show what happens when we do a refresh. So when Spice refresh, if I go over here and tell Spice to refresh, and we'll see that after the refresh completes, we will upload a new snapshot. And so this is now the latest snapshot. And so if I were to restart Spice, it would download from this new snapshot. So yeah, so that's a kind of a quick overview of the snapshot acceleration feature that we've added in 1.8.